The morning sun of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the pristine corridors of the Interstellar Defense Academy, its artificial light carefully calibrated to match the spectral needs of over 70 different species. In the crowded mess hall, conversations buzzed in a dozen languages, filtered through universal translators into a symphony of galactic cooperation. But in one corner, sitting alone with his standard protein ration, was Elon Voss, the only human in his year. A tray slammed down across from him, followed by the chittering laughter of Tilrex, a crystalline Krindari whose robotic form gleamed with superiority. "Morning, fleshling," the alien said, voice modulated through multiple vocal processors. "Ready for another day of failure?" Elon didn't look up from his food. The nickname had stuck since day one, when he'd shown up to orientation in standard Earth military fatigues instead of the powered combat armor every other cadet wore. At first, the instructors had assumed it was a cultural misunderstanding. Now, 3 months into training, they just thought he was slow to adapt. "The trial of reflex is today," Soren added, his 6 insectoid legs clicking against the floor as he approached. The Zalari warrior towered over most cadets, his chitinous exoskeleton naturally armored. "Complex level. Even with your species' primitive armor, you'll probably wash out." A soft voice interrupted. "Leave him alone." Naira, a semi-biological Scythian, set her tray down next to Elon. Her translucent skin revealed circuitry and organic tissue in equal measure. She was one of the few who didn't actively mock him, though she kept her distance like the others. Tilrex's optical sensors flared. "Defending the weakling again, Naira? What's your interest in the Deathworlder who can't even calibrate his armor properly?" The term made Elon's jaw tighten slightly. Deathworlder, Earth's designation in the galactic database. A planet so hostile that its dominant species had evolved under constant threat of extinction. The irony wasn't lost on him that everyone feared his homeworld while dismissing him as harmless. "Combat Sector Delta 9 in 30 minutes, the Academy AI announced through hidden speakers. All first-year cadets report for final equipment check." The other cadets began filing out, their various forms of powered armor clanking, humming, or silently gliding depending on their species' technology. Elon remained seated, finishing his meal methodically. Naira lingered. "You should check your armor systems. The trial of reflex isn't like the basic drills." "I know," Elon said quietly. "Then why do you always show up late to equipment prep? Your scores would improve if you just—" "I'll see you there." He cut her off gently, standing and disposing of his tray. The equipment bay was a testament to galactic diversity. Racks upon racks of specialized armor lined the walls, each designed for a specific species' physiology. The human section was notably sparse, containing only the handful of suits allocated for Earth's minimal representation in the Academy. Elon walked past them all. Commander Vexhai, a 4-armed Altarian who served as head instructor, noticed him heading for the exit. "Cadet Voss, your armor check?" "Completed, sir," Elon replied. The commander's tertiary eyes narrowed. "I don't see you wearing your suit." "No, sir. The trial of reflex is not a simulation, cadet. Live ammunition. Active combat drones. Environmental hazards. Without armor, you'll—" "I understand the risks, sir." The equipment bay fell silent. Every cadet stopped their preparations to stare. Even the automated systems seemed to pause. "Are you refusing to wear protective equipment?" Vexhai's voice carried a dangerous edge. "I'm choosing to trust my own capabilities, sir." Tilrex's laugh cut through the tension. The fleshlings finally cracked. "He's going to commit suicide by training exercise." "Silence." The commander's voice boomed. He turned back to Elon. "Cadet Voss, regulations clearly state. Regulations state that cadets must demonstrate combat readiness," Elon recited calmly. "They don't specify the equipment required, only that we must pass the trial." The commander's mandibles clicked in frustration. Technically, the human was correct. The oversight had never been an issue before because no species in the galaxy would consider entering combat without protection. This is highly irregular. The Academy assumes no responsibility for injuries sustained due to willful negligence. Understood, sir. Elon walked out of the equipment bay, wearing only his black training uniform, a form-fitting outfit designed for minimal resistance and maximum mobility. The fabric was dense but thin, offering about as much protection as paper against plasma fire. Combat Sector Delta 9 sprawled across 50 square kilometers of artificial terrain. The current configuration was a desert warfare simulation, complete with towering rock formations, shifting sand dunes, and scattered tactical barriers. The atmosphere had been adjusted to create a thin, hot environment that challenged most species' endurance. The observation deck was packed with senior cadets, instructors, and academy officials. The trial of reflex was always a spectacle, but word had spread quickly about the human refusing armor. "Bets on how long he lasts?" someone muttered. 30 seconds, tops. "You're generous." I give him 10. On the starting platform, 25 first-year cadets stood in formation. 24 wore state-of-the-art combat armor. One wore cloth. The trial administrator, an AI construct that manifested as a holographic sphere, began the briefing. "Cadets, your objective is simple. Survive and reach the extraction point. You will face escalating threats designed to test your reflexes, tactical thinking, and combat capabilities. Work as a team or individually, the choice is yours. Lethal force against other cadets is prohibited. Lethal force from training drones is authorized." A murmur ran through the group. Authorized meant the drones could and would kill if given the opportunity. "Cadet Voss," the AI continued, "sensors indicate you are not wearing protective equipment. Do you wish to abort?" "No." Acknowledged. Liability waiver recorded. Trial begins in 30 seconds. The cadets spread out across the starting platform, most forming small groups based on species or previous training partnerships. Elon stood alone at the edge, eyes scanning the terrain ahead. "Stay behind me," Fleshling, Soren said mockingly. "I'll try to keep the drones off you for at least a minute. Wouldn't want you to die too quickly and ruin the entertainment." 20 seconds. Elon rolled his shoulders, feeling the desert heat already beginning to bake the platform. His breathing slowed, heartbeat steadying into a rhythm that would have concerned medical staff if they'd been monitoring. 10 seconds. The other cadets activated their armor systems. Energy shields hummed to life. Weapon systems came online. Targeting computers booted up. 5 seconds. Elon closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with a focus that made Naira, watching from nearby, take an involuntary step back. Trial commence. The platform dissolved beneath their feet, dropping all cadets into the desert below. Most activated their armor's descent systems, landing gracefully. Elon hit the sand in a controlled roll, coming up running. The first wave of drones emerged from hidden positions in the rocks. Sleek, spider-like constructs armed with pulse weapons, they immediately opened fire. Chaos erupted. Cadets returned fire with their armor's weapon systems, brilliant beams of energy crisscrossing the desert. Shields flared as shots found their marks. The spider drones were fast, designed to overwhelm with numbers and maneuverability. Elon had no shields, no weapons, no armor. He also wasn't where the drones expected him to be. Moving with a fluidity that defied logical prediction, Elon weaved between pulse blasts that would have vaporized flesh on contact. He didn't run in straight lines or predictable patterns. Every movement seemed random yet purposeful, like a leaf in a hurricane that somehow never got torn apart. "What is he doing?" someone gasped from the observation deck. The human had reached the first rock formation, using the vertical surface not as cover, but as a springboard. He ran up the face just long enough to change direction, launching himself over a cluster of drones that had tried to pin him down. In midair, Elon's hand shot out, grabbing a loose climbing rope someone had left from a previous exercise. His trajectory changed instantly, swinging him around the rock face and directly onto the back of a larger assault drone. The machine bucked and spun, trying to throw him off. Anti-personnel measures activated, electrical current coursing through its hull. Elon's muscles convulsed but didn't let go. Instead, He jammed his fingers into a maintenance panel, ripping it open with strength that shouldn't have been possible for unaugmented human hands. The drone's movements became erratic. Elon had found something important inside. With precise savagery, he yanked out a handful of fiber optic cables. The drone didn't shut down. It went berserk. Now riding a malfunctioning killing machine, Elon directed its wild firing patterns toward other drones. The spider units, programmed to avoid friendly fire, scattered in confusion. Their tactical algorithms couldn't process an enemy that had turned their own unit into a weapon. Impossible, Commander Vexhai breathed. Elon rode the berserk drone straight into a sand dune, leaping clear at the last moment. The machine buried itself in the sand and exploded, creating a localized sandstorm that obscured sensors and visual tracking. Through the swirling sand, Elon emerged like a phantom, now armed with a piece of shrapnel that had been part of the drone's armor plating. It wasn't much of a weapon, but in his hands, it might as well have been a sword. The second wave arrived. Aerial drones with precision targeting systems. They locked onto heat signatures, movement patterns, and electromagnetic emissions from armor systems. Elon had no armor to target. His heat signature was masked by the residual warmth of the destroyed drone. His movements followed no pattern their algorithms could predict. He disappeared into a narrow canyon between two rock formations. The aerial drones followed, their sleek forms navigating the tight space with mechanical precision. They found nothing but shadows and stone. Above them, pressed against the canyon wall like a spider, Elon waited. As the last drone passed beneath him, he dropped. The impact drove the drone into the canyon floor. Before it could recover, Elon had jammed his improvised blade into its optical array. Blinded and disoriented, the drone fired wildly, its shots ricocheting off the canyon walls. Elon was already moving, using the drone's own bulk as a shield while he worked. His fingers found purchase on access panels, emergency releases, anything that could be exploited. The machine's design assumed attackers would be using hacking tools or heavy weapons, not bare hands guided by intuition and desperation. A cluster of wires came free. The drone's weapons switched to friendly fire suppression mode, unable to shoot with a friendly unit, itself in the line of fire. Elon had effectively disarmed it without destroying it. He left the confused machine spinning in circles and sprinted deeper into the canyon. The observation deck had gone silent. Even veteran instructors watched with mouths agape as the humans systematically outmaneuvered machines designed to counter the best technology in the galaxy. "Ow," someone finally asked. "He's not fighting them," Naira said softly, her optical implants recording everything. "He's hunting them." The third wave arrived with prejudice. Heavy assault drones, the kind used to train senior cadets. They shouldn't have been part of a first-year trial. The AI administrator's voice echoed across the training ground. Anomalous performance detected. Adjusting trial parameters to match demonstrated capability. "That's illegal," Tilrex protested from his position behind a shield barrier. "You can't change difficulty mid-trial. Exception protocols activated for unprecedented scenario. Continue trial." Elon heard the heavy footfalls before he saw them. Titan-class drones, 12 feet tall, armed with enough firepower to level buildings. Their armor was rated to withstand direct hits from starship weapons. He smiled. The other cadets had mostly reached defensive positions, using their armor systems to coordinate and return fire. They fought like soldiers. Elon moved like a predator. Using the canyon's acoustic properties, he threw rocks to create false echoes, drawing the Titans away from the other cadets. He wasn't being altruistic. He needed room to work. The first Titan rounded a bend and immediately fired. The shot vaporized a section of canyon wall where Elon had been a second before. He was already airborne, having used a protruding rock as a launching point. Landing on the Titan's shoulder, Elon drove his shrapnel blade into a joint actuator. The arm went limp, its weapon dropping to the sand. The drone tried to grab him with its other arm, but Elon was already moving, sliding down its back like a mongoose avoiding a cobra's strike. At ground level, he scooped up a handful of sand and threw it directly into the drone sensor array. The particles were too fine to trigger shields designed for energy weapons. The Titan's vision clouded momentarily. In that instant of blindness, Elon disappeared again. The Titan's tactical computer ran through millions of possible moves, predicting where a human-sized target could have gone. It calculated wrong. Elon hadn't gone anywhere. He dropped flat against the ground, pressed into a shallow depression in the sand. The Titan's own bulk created a sensor shadow it couldn't see into. When the machine stepped forward to search, Elon rolled between its legs and came up running, but not away, toward the canyon wall. The Titan turned, reacquiring its target. Its weapon charged for a killing shot. Elon hit the wall at full speed and kept going up. His fingers and toes found purchase on microscopic irregularities in the stone. He climbed like gravity was optional, like the vertical surface was merely a suggestion. The Titan fired. Rock exploded beneath Elon's feet as he pushed off, the blast actually propelling him higher. He caught an overhanging ledge and used his momentum to swing around it, disappearing from view. The Titan's head tracked upward, scanning for its vanished prey. Combat protocols dictated maintaining visual contact at all times. A pebble bounced off its head from above. Then another. Then Elon landed on its shoulders. He'd acquired more than just pebbles during his climb. The training grenade had been left by some careless cadet in a previous exercise, wedged in a crevice 20 feet up. It wasn't powerful enough to breach Titan armor, but Elon wasn't aiming for armor. His fingers had found the maintenance access port during his first pass. Now, as the Titan reached up to grab him, Elon shoved the grenade into the port and dove clear. The explosion wasn't spectacular. It didn't need to be. Inside the Titan's chest cavity, the grenade's electromagnetic pulse scrambled delicate circuitry. The drone staggered, its movements becoming increasingly erratic. Elon watched from a safe distance as the Titan fought its own failing systems. Weapons fired randomly. Legs moved without coordination. Finally, with a grinding of metal that sounded almost mournful, the massive machine toppled forward and lay still. The desert fell silent except for distant weapons fire where other cadets still fought their battles. Blood ran down Elon's arm from a gash where shrapnel had caught him. His uniform was torn in multiple places. Sand and sweat stung in cuts across his face. He was breathing hard but steadily, like a runner who just finished a marathon but could go another if needed. The AI administrator's voice returned. Final wave incoming. All surviving cadets converge on extraction point. Elon saw the other cadets in the distance, their armor's identification beacons glowing. They formed a defensive perimeter, pooling their shields and firepower. Smart tactics. He started toward them, then stopped. The sand beneath his feet was vibrating. Multiple Titan-class signatures detected. The AI announced with what might have been anticipation. Survival probability calculated at 12% for armored cadets, 0% for unarmored. The Titans emerged from the sand itself, a trap that had been prepared from the beginning. Not just one or two, but an entire squad. Their weapons charged in unison, preparing for a devastating coordinated strike. The armored cadets opened fire, their weapons barely scratching the Titans' hulls. Shields flared and died under return fire. The defensive line began to crumble. Elon looked at the improvised blade in his hand, then at the approaching machines, then at something no one else had noticed. A fuel depot marker, partially buried in the sand. Old training ground infrastructure, forgotten but not removed. He ran toward the Titans. The fleshlings lost it. Tilrex screamed, his armor's alarms shrieking as his shield generator overloaded. Elon zigzagged through weapons fire that turned sand to glass around him. One shot came close enough to singe his hair. Another tore through his uniform, leaving a burn across his ribs. He reached the buried depot and dropped to his knees, digging frantically. His fingers found metal. A valve, still pressurized after who knew how long. A Titan loomed over him, weapon charging for point-blank execution. Elon smiled and twisted the valve. Pressurized fuel erupted from the sand like a geyser. Not flammable in its current state, but under extreme pressure. The spray hit the Titan's charging weapon array at exactly the wrong moment. The explosion was magnificent. The Titan vanished in a ball of fire that rose 100 feet into the air. The shockwave knocked everyone flat, armor or no armor. The other Titans staggered, their formation broken. Through the smoke and flames, Elon emerged. His silhouette against the inferno looked like something out of humanity's oldest nightmares. Or maybe its oldest triumphs. He was dragging something. A Titan's arm, torn free by the explosion. The weapon systems were still functional. Elon hefted the massive gun, a weapon designed to be fired by a 12-foot machine, and turned it on the remaining Titans. The recoil should have shattered every bone in his body. The weight should have been impossible to lift. The targeting systems required a direct neural interface to operate. Elon pulled the trigger anyway. Physics be damned, the weapon fired. Not with any accuracy, but at that range, with that much firepower, accuracy was optional. Titans scattered, their tactical computers unable to process an unarmored human wielding their own weapons against them. Extraction point opening, the AI announced, its tone suggesting even it was impressed. All cadets proceed immediately. A portal shimmered into existence at the far end of the combat zone. The surviving cadets limped toward it, supporting each other. Some had lost armor systems. Others were down to emergency power. Elon dropped the Titan weapon and walked through the burning desert like he was taking a stroll through a park. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. His left arm hung at an angle that suggested a dislocated shoulder. One eye was swollen nearly shut. He reached the extraction point last, stepping through the portal with seconds to spare. The medical bay erupted. In controlled chaos as cadets materialized. Automated systems immediately began triage. Most had minor injuries despite their armor. Bruises from impacts. Stress fractures from overtaxed systems. Elon stood apart, a medical scanner documenting injuries that should have incapacitated him. Lacerations. Second-degree burns. Fractured ribs. Dislocated shoulder. Severe dehydration. He was still standing. Dr. Theron, the Academy's chief medical officer, personally attended to him. The Altarian physician had served in 3 galactic wars and seen every type of combat injury imaginable. You should be in shock, the doctor muttered, running scanner after scanner. Your pain readings are off the charts. How are you even conscious? Pain is just information, Elon said quietly. You can choose what to do with information. The doctor stared at him. That's not how biology works. It is where I come from. The treatment took hours. Elon never made a sound, even when they reset his shoulder or cleaned the burns. He just stared at the ceiling with those unsettling calm eyes. The debriefing was held in the Academy's main amphitheater. Every screen showed footage from the trial, focusing on Elon's performance. Military analysts from a dozen species had already begun dissecting every move. Commander Vexhai stood at the podium, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. In 300 years of trials, we have never seen anything like today's performance. Cadet Voss, explain your tactics. Elon stood, still favoring his injured arm. No tactics, sir. Just survival. You refused armor that could have prevented your injuries. Armor would have made me slower, less flexible, more predictable. You turned our own drones against us. They're machines. Machines have patterns. Patterns can be exploited. And the Titan weapons? No human should be able to. Humans have been doing impossible things since we learned to throw rocks at predators, sir. It's how we survived our world. The commander's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The footage is being transmitted to every military academy in the Alliance. Our training doctrine may need to be completely reconsidered. From the back of the room, someone started clapping. Slowly, deliberately. It was Naira. Others joined. Not enthusiastically, but with the grudging respect soldiers give to something that has forever changed their understanding of warfare. Tilrex remained seated, his crystalline form rigid with conflicting emotions. He's still just a fleshling, he said, but the words lacked their usual venom. Soren's compound eyes focused on Elon with new consideration. Teach me, the Zalari said simply. In the days that followed, everything changed. The video spread beyond military channels, reaching civilian populations across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as the weak link in the alliance. They were something far more unsettling. They were survivors. The Academy AI updated its combat algorithms, adding a new variable to every simulation: Deathworlder unpredictability factor. The number was so high it essentially meant assume anything is possible. Training requests flooded in, not for human technology or weapons, but for human instructors. Species that had relied on technology for millennia wanted to learn the older ways, the savage ways, the ways that kept you alive when everything else failed. Elon found himself the center of attention he'd never sought. Cadets who had mocked him now approached with questions about movement, about reading terrain, about thinking like a predator instead of a soldier. He taught what he could, though most struggled with the concepts. "You're trying to think your way through it," he told a group during an impromptu training session. "Stop thinking. Start feeling. Your body knows how to survive. Your technology has made you forget how to listen to it." Naira became his most dedicated student. Her synthetic biology allowed her to process information differently, bridging the gap between pure instinct and conscious thought. She was the first to successfully apply human survival methodology to her own combat style. "I recorded everything," she told them one evening as they watched Nexus Prime's 3 moons rise over the Academy. "Every move you made, every decision. But when I analyze the data, it doesn't make sense. You moved before threats appeared, dodged shots that hadn't been fired yet." "Prediction isn't just about processing data," Elon replied. "It's about understanding intent. Machines may not have emotions, but they have purpose. Purpose creates patterns. Break the pattern, control the purpose." "Is that what Earth taught you?" Elon was quiet for a moment. "Earth taught us that everything wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, other humans, even the ground beneath your feet. You learn to see death coming from all directions, or you don't learn anything at all. That's terrifying." That's Tuesday. The Academy commissioned a new training course based on the trial footage. They called it Asymmetric Survival Protocol. Cadets learned to fight without their primary systems, to think beyond their species' traditional approaches, to embrace controlled chaos. The first class had a 60% failure rate. Elon watched from the observation deck as cadets struggled with the most basic concepts. "They're still trying to use tactics," he said to Commander Vexhai, who had taken to consulting him on training matters. "Tactics win wars," the commander replied. "Tactics assume rules. Survival has no rules." The commander's 4 eyes studied him. "Your species may be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy." "No," Elon said softly. "We're just the ones who lived long enough to leave our world. You haven't met the things that didn't make it off Earth." Months passed. Elon's legend grew, distorted by retelling and military propaganda. He became a symbol of human potential, which amused him since he'd spent his whole life being told he was fairly average by Earth standards. Other humans began arriving at the Academy, recruited specifically for the new training programs. They were soldiers, survivors, people who had grown up in Earth's remaining wild places where technology was a luxury and instinct was currency. The galaxy watched nervously as these new instructors demonstrated techniques that seemed to violate physics, biology, and common sense. They taught cadets to weaponize their environment, to turn limitations into advantages, to think like the monsters their ancestors had fled to the stars to escape. "We're not teaching them to be human," one instructor explained to concerned Academy officials. "We're teaching them to be survivors. There's a difference." The concern was justified. Species that had evolved in safer environments struggled with the psychological shift required. Post-traumatic stress became common. Some cadets withdrew from the program entirely, unable to reconcile their civilized nature with the primal skills being taught. But those who adapted became something new, something the galaxy had never seen. Soldiers who could function without their technology. Warriors who saw opportunity where others saw only death. Elon graduated with honors he hadn't sought, wearing the simple dress uniform of Earth's military. No medals, no commendations, just a quiet acknowledgement that he had changed everything simply by being himself. At the ceremony, Tilrex approached him. The Krendari's crystalline form had been modified, incorporating flexible joints and reactive surfaces inspired by human physiology. "I owe you an apology," the alien said. "No, you don't. I called you weak. I was wrong. You call me what you saw. That's not wrong, just incomplete." Tilrex's optical array flared. "Will you sir with me? My people are forming a new unit. We want human advisors." It was the beginning of a new era in galactic military doctrine. Mixed units with human specialists became the norm, not for their technology or firepower, but for their ability to survive when everything went wrong. The Deathworlder protocols, as they came to be known, revolutionized combat across known space. Species learned to trust their instincts again, to see their environments as allies rather than obstacles, to understand that the greatest weapon was the will to survive. Elon served for a time, teaching and leading, before eventually returning to Earth. He found a quiet place in the mountains where the air was thin and the predators still honest about their intentions. Sometimes, on clear nights, he would look up at the stars and smile. The galaxy had learned what Earth had always known. Survival wasn't about strength or technology or armor. It was about refusing to die when everything else said you should. The footage of his trials still played in military academies across the galaxy, analyzed and reanalyzed by each new generation of cadets. But the lesson wasn't in the moves he made or the tactics he didn't use. It was in the moment he chose to trust himself instead of their armor. That choice changed everything. Years later, when asked about the trial that had revolutionized galactic military thinking, Elon would shrug and say what he'd always said. "We're not the monsters. We just survived them." And in the vast reaches of space, where civilizations rose and fell like waves on an endless ocean, that truth echoed in the training halls and battle plans of 100 worlds. The Deathworlders had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is the thing that refuses to die. The Academy eventually erected a monument to that day. Not a statue or a plaque, but a simple stone from Earth, uncarved and unpolished, sitting in the center of the main courtyard. Cadets would touch it before their trials, hoping for some of that human unpredictability, that savage refusal to accept defeat. Most didn't understand that the power wasn't in the stone. It was in the choice to trust yourself when the whole universe said you were wrong. Elon never returned to see the monument. He didn't need to. He'd already left his mark on the galaxy, written in the survival instincts of 1,000 species who learned that armor wasn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer was just being too stubborn to die. And somewhere in the mountains of Earth, where the air was thin and the nights were cold, an old soldier would look at his scars and remember the day he taught the galaxy that humans weren't weak. They were just very, very hard to kill. The stars looked different now, he thought. Not as distant, not as foreign. They were filled with soldiers who understood what Earth had always known. That survival was an art form. That instinct was a weapon. That sometimes being human was enough. The Academy still used his footage, still taught his lessons, still struggled to understand how one unarmored human had changed everything. But Elon knew the truth was simpler than they wanted to believe. He hadn't done anything special. He just survived, like humans always had, like humans always would. The monument stood through seasons and ceremonies, through graduations and declarations of war. Cadets came from across the galaxy to train at the Academy where the Deathworlder had shown them the truth about survival. And in the end, that was Elon's greatest victory. Not the trial he survived or the titans he destroyed, but the idea he planted in the minds of 1,000 species. That maybe, just maybe, they could survive too. Without armor, without weapons, with nothing but the will to keep going when the universe said stop. The human way, the survivor's way, the Deathworlder's way. And the galaxy was never the same. The stars themselves seemed to shine differently now, as if acknowledging that something fundamental had changed. The predators of 100 worlds looked up at those stars and recognized kindred spirits. The prey species learned they could bare their teeth too, all because one human refused to wear armor. All because one Deathworlder trusted his own skin more than their protection. All because sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply being yourself. The trial footage became required viewing not just for military academies, but for schools, corporations, and governments. Philosophers debated its implications. Scientists studied the biological mechanics. Psychologists analyzed the mindset. They all missed the point. Survival wasn't something you could study. It was something you lived, or died trying. And in the vast emptiness between stars, where ancient things drifted in the dark and civilizations measured time in eons, that lesson spread like ripples in a cosmic pond. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the universe would never be safe again, which was exactly how it should be, because safety was an illusion. But survival was eternal. Like the humans who refused to die, like the earth that made them, like the stars that watched it all and remembered forever.